Welcome here at FBC Athens. We have a mission statement. We say, love God, live like Jesus, serve others. Let's go. So we're here for the very first Let's Go podcast, where we want to connect you to your calling, connect you to the text, and encourage you to live out the Great Commission as disciples of Christ. Today we have with us Hermano Juan.
Yes, I'm Juan Moreno, a bilingual pastor and the student pastor at First Baptist. So it's good to be here. Yeah,
1 in a million.
That's right, man.
1 in a million. We get 2 for 1 special, huh?
Yep.
But we're glad to have you here today, man. We had wanted to start these off with a little segment just to kind of draw attention to things that you're seeing the Lord doing. So what is something that you've, what's a God sighting? What's something you've seen the Lord do? What's something He's been on the move in your life?
Man, I've stepped into the student ministry here at First Baptist. It's been a couple years now. And just to see the joy of our students come together, invite friends, encourages me. And I think it would encourage anybody at our church just to see what God's doing with our students and getting them excited about God. I mean, it's just amazing to see that. And that makes me happy. That encourages me. And I know God's doing some pretty cool things in our student ministry. So, yeah.
He is. I can tell you, for me, last night we went to prayer and praise service at the Eastern Hills Church of Christ. A cappella worship for like an hour. A lot of the local pastors were there, and we're just, through Love Thy Neighbor here in this city, we're just starting to see God speak to all the pastors and just bringing unity. And Jesus talks about unity in John 17. It feels like the Lord just has that kind of as a theme in our churches and in our church right now. But just to come together with all those folks was just such a blessing last night, and can't wait to see what the Lord is going to do through Love Thy Neighbor coming up forward. So, well, we had Dr. Still with us on Sunday.
We did.
It's always a blessing to hear from him.
Yeah, and our bilingual folks, where this was the first time they actually saw him, in a service. We'd always see Dr. Parsley before, but to see him was kind of special. It was real neat.
Yeah, so we were in the text. So we want to connect you to the text today, but first we want to connect you to your calling through this text. And so kind of the let's go, this is what do you think just after listening to the sermon, like how do we keep living out this sermon? It starts, that we're finally through 1 Corinthians. It has been a long 16 weeks.
Yeah.
We're in chapter 16, and it's kind of the end of this letter.
Yeah.
And I think he just asked at the beginning, like, how many of you might just read over this passage, right? Like this is just chapter, he's just doing some greetings and things like that. But as we were able to linger in that chapter, I think there's some really good nuggets. So what kind of stood out to you yesterday about the message?
Now, looking at that, I've had the opportunity to be preaching along with Dr. Still and Dr. Parsley through 1 Corinthians. And one thing that we can see is this group of people that are new Christians, new believers. They're not in a big old church. They're not even in a medium-sized church. They're in homes. They're in small groups, and they're doing this for the first time. There's no pattern. There's no, this is the way it's been done for years and years, and this is the way we have to do it. They're trying to figure it out as they're going. And one thing that Paul mentions to them is, you have so much going for you. God has done so much in your life, but you're focusing on the wrong things. You're focusing on yourself. There was so many, like in chapter 8, where they were sacrificing. This idol worship was part of their life before they knew Christ, but then they wanted to continue in that while other Christians were falling and saying, no, we're trying to get out of that lifestyle. So it was almost as if I'm choosing, right? Should I honor me? Should I honor you? Should I honor God? And he says, you know what, guys? We need to come together. We need to be unified. And through that, you do it through love. And we see that through the whole chapter, is like you're putting yourself aside and you're loving each other as Christ had loved us. And I think that was hit very at the end of 16, saying, guys, you got to continue in that love.
Yeah, and it's we have the chapter, famous chapter in 1 Corinthians on love, and it's just this constant theme that kind of weaves its way throughout. But it's also important, I think, to just be connected to this letter and to just. I think that Dr. Still and Dr. Parsley both have just really helped me see the context that lies beneath the text of
Yeah.
1 Corinthians. Fascinating things going on in the world at that time, but a lot of mess going on in the 1 Corinthian church. But what a healthy reminder that when we have things that we deal with and questions, and here we are, it's made me wonder, what would our letter be to Paul?
Yeah.
What are the questions we'd have for him, and how might he respond? And I do think that he would point to all the faithful servants that we have, both in our church, in this community, around, and he would say, encourage these people, love on these people, love on each other, and walk together as one.
It would be the same message, because we are the same people. We have the same struggles. We're fallen, and we're trying to, again, figure it out just like they were trying to figure it out. We're figuring it out. But it's pretty neat to have these letters from Paul and to have the Holy Spirit walk along with us. It's good.
And this week we're rolling into James, so we're going to go a whole other direction, but still in the letter kind of realm, and we're gonna be digging deep into that. I'm excited about that series. Now, let's connect to the text. Let's ask some questions of the text. One of the emphases here in chapter 16 is he's emphasized a collection for the saints in Jerusalem. What do you think this teaches us about an early Christian community that he's writing of?
Yeah, one thing that Dr. Still really talked about was this idea of generosity. Bringing an offering, bringing a collection, right, to a group of individuals. And it wasn't in the sense that we have today, because we give our tithes, we give our offerings. Some of that goes to helping someone. Back then in the New Testament church, it was all given to the needy. Okay, there's a group in the church that have come up to us, and they need, they're in this capacity that they need, or in this capacity, and they would fill those needs because of their giving. So this idea of generosity was important then. It's important now. Because we have so many people that are in need, not only physically, but financially, emotionally, spiritually, and we need to have a generous heart.
Right, and one of the things that Dr. Still mentioned, his sermons were, by the way, different a little bit in the early service versus the second service, but still the same content. But one of the things he talked about was how you don't get to take all this stuff with you. I think he said hearses don't pull U-Hauls. But he said he loves to walk around in cemeteries, and one of the things he says, there's a year for when you're born, a year for when you die. Yeah. And what are you going to do with the hyphen that's in the middle? That really stuck with me, because when it comes to generosity, when it comes to me thinking about what are the things that the Lord has given me, that he's given me everything. And so I think that just this week, I would encourage folks, and it's encouraged me to just look for some opportunities to have a little over-the-top generosity.
Definitely.
To live a life in that hyphen that honors God, that May is done in secret.
Yeah.
Pay for the person behind you in line this week. Do some things that are generous and over the top. And I think that's what he's getting into here at the beginning, is nothing is ours. God has given us everything we have. God has given us everything we need. And so in this letter, we may skim over this thing where he's saying, here, do what I told the Galatian churches to do. And the first day of every week, each one of you should set aside a sum of money in keeping with your income and saving it up. And so it's I could read through that really fast. But if you slow down in these texts and you say, well, what does this mean to me? And I think what it means is slow down, Wade. Find some time to be overly generous this week with the goodness and the gifts that God has given you. So I love that. I thought that was great. Yeah. Now we have he goes through all these names and personal requests, and it's after I go to Macedonia, I hope I will come to you. Perhaps I'll stay with you for a while or spend the winter. So he's kind of talking about planning on coming to visit them, and he says that he's sending Timothy to come and see them. And what does this have to do with us today? That's kind of these seem very specific to the Corinthian church, but what do you see in this kind of mention of Timothy, this mention of other saints.
Yeah. So he mentions Timothy, he mentions Apollos, and the thing is with these two men, they were Corinthian themselves. So these are people that have grown up in that area, who know the people, who know the need. Yes, they were sending offerings to Jerusalem, but also they were fulfilling the needs of people in the community. And he selected these men to minister alongside them who knew the needs. So just today, Wade, I was driving with our new missions pastor. So I was showing him parts of Athens, and I take him over to parts of Athens that the Disciples Clinic is, on kind of the northwest part of town, and Love in Action. And we're driving through these neighborhoods, and I tell him, you know what, a lot of people don't know this part of Athens. They don't regularly drive through here, and there's really no need to go through there unless you're visiting somebody, right? But the thing is to take a stroll through some of our neighborhoods, right? They may be lower economically, the thing is just to see need. There's people in our community that are seriously in need, and the thing is, we can't just think that's them, and we're over here. But we are a community, and we are part of it. And the thing is to be still connected with those areas of our community where we can join ministries in our church, right? Come alongside with Love in Action, or find these groups of people that are already doing something and work together. Because Timothy, Apollos, they knew the people, they knew the needs, and joined them and worked together. I think that's pretty amazing.
Right, and it's just a fresh reminder that God has placed so many resources at our hands in whatever it is, in generosity and actual gifts and money and things like that, or in people.
Yeah.
And finding connection to that. And I love these letters. I actually was able to go to Corinth last year when we had our mission trip to Greece. And so as we spent so much time in it, I'm drawn to what I saw when I was there, which is Corinth is on this beautiful hill overlooking this gorgeous sea. Mm-hmm. And it's just such a beautiful place. Yeah. And it's kind of like what you just said. If we live and we don't see, we can look past all the need and just see what we want to see. But you would look at that place and go, these guys, they can't have a problem in the world. But they live in a beautiful place. But as we've seen, there were lots of problems that needed to be. And same with us here, the Church of Athens, the church in Athens. So that's good. One more thing to connect to the text today. What can we learn from Paul's use of phrases like, if the Lord permits? So he's saying, I'm gonna come. I'm planning to come. I'd like to spend a lot of time with you, if the Lord permits. I think that's an interest. It's just a few words, but what are your thoughts on him using that? And I tend to think we say things like that often, like if God wills, or
See, I remember growing up, my mom, when we get in the car, she would say a short prayer, and then she would say that if the Lord permits, she'd say it in Spanish, and then we'd go off on our day. And the thing is that shows me, we're not in complete control, right? We think we are. We think we are in got everything handled, right? But the thing is, God allows, God permits. And sometimes he permits things that we don't understand, and we can ask why. So our prayer is like, God, if you permit this to happen, I need you to come along, and I need you to be with me. I need you to walk with me. I need you to lead me. I need you to guide me, because we get in this mode that we've got it under control. We know what we're doing. We know what the outcome's going to be. And then when it's not what we expect, we're like, oh, God, what's going on? So always have that humbled heart to say, God, I need you to help me through this, guide me through this. And you allow it, and we'll go forward. And if you don't, well, you don't. And again, we'll go forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
In an age of calendars that are full and plans that are being made months in advance, and every one of these little apps for your calendar have little blocks, and they just get filled. How much space in those blocks do we leave for the Lord? Paul is really specifically saying, I'm planning on this. This is what I want. But he adds that in there. And I think that it's a small phrase, but it's an important one. If you reflect on it, if the Lord permits. Are we living lives that allow for that kind of permission?
And this is the guy who wrote 3/4 of the New Testament, right? and then we can't compare to him, but he's even saying that. Yeah.
Right. And so it's just leaving some space for the holy, leaving some space for the Lord. And so as you go throughout your week this week too, I think just encouraging folks, like, leave a little space. Allow God to speak into even the mundane, into the small moments. So, all right, we've heard a whole series on 1 Corinthians. Now we're moving into the book of James. But what do you think overall? What is 1 Corinthians? Kind of last question today.
Yeah.
What have you thought of the time that we've spent in 1 Corinthians? And you've been able to preach through most of it.
Yeah.
So, how have you enjoyed this? We don't often do a sermon series where we go 16 weeks in one book.
No. I think that the big takeaway from it is this idea that we're all in this together. There needs to be unity in the body. And because if the harmony doesn't exist within the body, there's going to be things that come into the church, come into our lives, into our families, that should not be there, but we're allowing it to be there. And if we're united, there's one thought, one mind in what we're doing. And the thing is, all of these divisions that we're seeing in our world, and right now with the whole political stuff that's going on right now, there's so many divisions. And God's saying, no, guys, you need to come together, and you need to come together in love, because that's what's going to allow this to keep going forward. Mm-hmm. And in the hard times, we're going to be together. In the happy, great times, we're going to be together, and we're going to be together no matter what. And that love that Christ has for us is going to bloom, it's going to shine, and it's going to light up this world, and people notice, and it changes lives. So that's what I take from all this.
Yeah, one of the things that I keep hearing, both in our church, in this time of transition, but also with pastors throughout the city, unity is just God. The Holy Spirit is speaking this to us now. I think He's really pouring on that, like John 17, the prayer of Jesus for unity for the church and for believers. I don't think it's any mistake that we're going into an election season. Andy Stanley has this saying that I really love. It's, we can disagree politically, we can disagree culturally, we can disagree even theologically, but we can love unconditionally.
That's right.
And Satan loves to use this season to draw more division. Mm-hmm. And what God is saying is, let's be united as one. Yeah. Let's love one another. And in this season, that can be a real hard challenge.
Yeah. But
what unites us is greater than what tries to divide us. And 1 Corinthians is a great, great reminder of that. So thanks for your time today, Pastor Juan. And we'll see Juan on here probably quite a bit. But we just want to use this time in this podcast to connect you to God's Word, to give you some kind of tools to continue this conversation of the sermon throughout your week, and connect us and bring us together a little more. Yeah. So thanks for your time. Thanks for coming on to the Let's Go podcast. So as we say, love God, live like Jesus, serve others, and we say,
let's go.
Vamos.
Vamos.